Hey everybody, good morning and welcome to the Morning Devo with Bo O this May 20th, 2022. So glad, Paula, you're already in the comment corner ready to go. I didn't even have the counter on today, and to really let you guys know when it was going to finally hit live and we were going to be going, but so glad to see you already anticipating the devotional study and the time in the Word of God. So my name's Bo, and I do these morning devos with Bo-O. It's a time to really go through the Bible, and if you've never gone through the Bible, it can be a real educational process and very interesting. And I know so many of my presuppositions on the Bible really had to get broken down as I read through it, and actually took some time to look into it a little more than what I just got from here and there and bits and pieces all around me. And so I'm hoping that these Devos, not only just I enjoy getting in the Word daily, but that you, as you join me, you kind of see the point of them and the purpose of these passages and why they really are so important in our day and age. So, Paul, I'm very glad that you're growing and learning. So, chapter 12 of the book of Deuteronomy, another great chapter, and it's one that's very much reiterated in the New Testament, the concepts that are in this chapter. So, this chapter starts with these are the decrees and laws you must be careful to follow in the land the Lord your God is giving you to possess. And it talks about them removing all of the areas of worship that were in that land at one point. So it's basically like, hey, when you go into this area and you buy that house, you take over that home, remove all the old vestiges from what they did and make it your own, make it new, And so this idea, this theme is going to pop up all the time in the book of Deuteronomy, and it's really seen here. Remove completely all the places of the high mountains and on the hills and under every spreading tree where the nations you are dispossessing worship their gods. Break down their altars and smash their sacred stones and burn their Asherah poles in the fire. Now, the reason why this is to happen is actually at the end of the chapter. Why they are to remove these things. At the end of the chapter, it reiterates this idea of don't worship their gods. And the reason why is because they do all kinds of detestable things that Yahweh finds wrong. It doesn't find that it's good at all. And you might ask, what are they? Well, it says they even burn their sons and their daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. So this is something that God saw, Yahweh, the God of Israel, saw as a grievous departure from what was intended in worshiping the deities. Absolute departure, not to happen. Should not go there. You should not burn your kids. And so this is something that was happening in these areas in this land of Canaan. And so there is this institution of removing every weight in the sin that so easily ensnares. That's what the New Testament says in the book of Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. But that's the idea of Hebrews. Hebrews is written to who? Hebrews. Deuteronomy is written by who? Hebrews. So I think you see the link there. Is that the writers of the New Testament, being Jewish, understood these passages and books that we're going over very well. They actually had a lot of this memorized or known just by hearing it all the time. And so when it says remove those high places, it means these places that again, the people in the land would worship, and they were located a lot of times on hills, in places that were pretty, retreat centers, so to speak, right? Places like of a retreat, but they would make it into a place of worship, and they would, make idols, and of course bow down to those idols, and have various rituals and ceremonies that were around those idols. And this whole chapter 12, is just about, hey, don't have really, this is what you're to do so that you don't fall into idolatry. Just remove these things, so it begs that question always in our life of like, hey, what are the things I need to remove? And if I don't remove it, then does it become that weight, that's in my life? Does it become like something that's on my weight, on my shoulder all the time? Because it's always just right there, right? It's always at the tip of the finger, so to speak. And it's like, hey, I like whoopie pies. I don't know if anybody's eaten whoopie pies before, New England treat, right? And, my parents, because of growing up in Maine, I grew up enjoying those whoopie pies. And, but man, if you put whoopie pies in front of me, oh man, I can eat a lot of them in one sitting. And in order for me not to eat any, you got to really remove all the whoopie pies from the house, because I will try to find it. But that's the idea, is remove those things that hinder you. Now, whoopie pies can hinder you if you're eating them every day. But false worship is something that can hurt us not just in the here and now, but can hurt us for eternity. That's the idea, is that when you worship something false, it's not like, oh, that's okay. No, there's consequences to worshiping something false. Obviously, the kids really felt the consequence of those parents that burned them on the altar of Molech or whatever god they were serving. Yeah, good old New England. That's right. The old New England whoopie pie. And yeah, and of course my mom made them a certain way, and they were awesome. That kind of thing. But yeah, you got to remove that stuff, right? It says in verse 4, you must not worship the Lord your God in their way. So that's what it's talking about, in 12:4 is, hey, don't go in their way. You must not do it as they did it. So you must not go in all these different areas. Like they were worshiping on all these hills and mountains, as I've already said. You're to go to one location, one place, right? Remember where the Levites were at? They were serving. They were to help you draw near to God through what? The sacrifice and the sacrificial system that God did allow, meaning he allowed a way for people to be atoned for, their sin to be covered over. But it wasn't by their kids. It wasn't through their kids being sacrificed. It was through an animal being sacrificed. And that was mercy, because the soul that sins shall die. I'm the one that sinned, so I'm the one who deserves the judgment. That's the idea, right? I deserve the judgment. I sinned. But instead of like my kid taking the brunt of it, or my wife or my family, now we see that, hey, the animal takes the brunt. He identifies with me, the animal. It's not a perfect identity, but it was a picture that we needed a true atonement. That atonement did need to happen. Of course, Jesus is the perfect atonement. That's what the New Testament is about and the New Covenant is about. So I think you grab that. And so God chose a place of his dwelling. Remember, that was the tabernacle. And in the tabernacle, that central place. And that in Israel, God would choose a place, a central place for the people to go. And in verse 11 it says, then to the place the Lord your God will choose as a dwelling for his name. His name will be in that one centralized place, if you will. There you are to bring everything I command you, your burnt offerings, and it goes down, your vows, your free will offerings, all the offerings that we went through so far in the law. They were to bring those things to that central place. And there it says you are to rejoice before your God. Isn't that interesting? The sacrificial system was to be one of joy, right? One of, a fellowship with God. They were eating the food that was sacrificed. So it was like a picnic, if you will. It was kind of like a festival in some ways, that kind of idea as well. But it was a place where they were going to go and be around God. And so that's kind of how this is being spoken of, this one place to worship, right? Removing the things that are in there that are going to cause you to fall and cause you to stumble, and now let's move towards the things of Yahweh. And in verse 13 it says, "Be careful not to sacrifice your burnt offering anywhere you please." Don't just go anywhere you want. Offer them only at the place the Lord will choose in one of the tribes, and there observe everything I command you. So there's one way to do it. There's one way to worship, right? There's a centralized way, and y'all need to pay attention to that. You can't just go rogue. You can't just do your own thing. You got to bring things to the temple, and the temple is where you need to go. Now, it's interesting, when Jesus was on the scene, just so you know, Jesus said, "One who is greater than the temple is among you." And he's talking about himself, meaning, and then he says, "Destroy my temple and I'll raise it again in 3 days." Pretty radical, right? Jesus's body being a temple. See, the temple was to be the dwelling place of God. Well, Jesus is the temple, the dwelling place of God. One greater than the physical temple. Now God in human flesh is there amongst them. And so that's the parallel, if you will. In Israel, in Deuteronomy, we see that they are to bring their offering to the temple. In the New Testament, Jesus, God in human flesh, dwelling in the human temple, will offer that human temple on our behalf. And wow, very, very interesting, right? But we are to come to the temple still, right? But who's the temple? Well, it's Jesus. That's who we're to come to. So that's the idea in chapter 12. And it's good. It's good. There's good Devo stuff, right? Good things to think about. Good principles. Hey, help me to remove the things that cause me to stumble. The different weights in my life. The different things that hinder me. What is it that bothers me? What is it that prevents me from, moving forward or growing or finding freedom and, finding joy and finding peace of mind and good mental health, in my life? What are those things? Is it the phone? Is it the TV? Is it just video stuff that all the time is there? Am I not talking enough to people? Am I not getting out to maybe help people in certain ways? What is it? What can I do, to be of good mental health? Those kind of things. Maybe think through some of that, right? What is it I need to remove, and what do I need to go towards? And so that's the idea here, is remove, move towards, right? Remove, move towards. And so hopefully you guys kind of grab that, right? And so that's kind of that chapter. And I read the very end of that chapter for you so you could see that the reason this is all happening, of course, is because, man, they're saying, hey, God's saying, just don't go into the route of where these people are here in this land, because, man, they're doing stuff that's gnarly. And I would imagine if someone, sacrificed their kids today in this kind of way, of burning them in the fire, oh, man, I would hope there would be a large outcry for that, because it just sounds pretty radical, right? That kind of idolatry. You just go, oh man. But it's interesting, right? The people of Canaan knew of the true and living God. Remember, they had an idea of the true and living God for sure. They knew there was a separation between them and the true and living God, right? They made distortions of the true and living God, worshiping all kinds of false gods, right? Making images in their own minds of what God was like. And what they did is they knew they needed sacrifice. They knew they needed to draw near to God somehow. And what's interesting is, in so many cultures, sacrifices are a part of our ancient history, right? The sacrificial systems that all of our ancestors once did. No matter where you're from, all of us did sacrifices. There's this genuine idea throughout the whole world that all of us need atonement. We all need to be drawn near to God. But there's a right way to draw near, and there's a wrong way to draw near. And that's what we see here. And in verse 13, it continues the idea of worshiping, not worshiping other gods. But notice how it talks about it. If a prophet or one who foretells by dreams appears among you and announces to you a miraculous sign or wonder, and if the sign or wonder of which he has spoken takes place, and he says, let us follow other gods, gods you have not known, and let us worship them, you must not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer. Whoa. So hey, someone comes to you and says something, and it's accurate. It seems totally right on, meaning what they predicted has come true. But then they entice you to go worship another god other than Yahweh. This is what chapter 13 is about. And it's saying if you're enticed. So the whole idea is about this enticement, whether it's from a quote prophet, right? Someone who is foretelling the future, or through dreams, by dreams it says here specifically, or announces a miraculous sign. Or if you go down, it could be your very brother, your son or daughter in verse 6, or people in your own family. It talks about them moving you away from the worship of Yahweh. You are not to go. You are to remain focused on Yahweh and not to move away from Yahweh. Yahweh is going to dwell with the people of Israel, and so there's ramifications for that. It's not just, you can't just be helter-skelter. You can't just do whatever you want to do. God's going to dwell in your midst. He's going to show his presence in this tabernacle, this place of dwelling. And God's wrath is against unrighteousness. And so we see that there's this battle, in a sense, taking place about, God dwelling with people and their sin being a problem. And this just keeps coming up. There are things in place to prevent, in a sense, cause them to prosper. There's things in place like the Levitical system that helps them stay, in a sense, in a healthy place with God. But we see that it's going to be very difficult, because it's going to be very easy to fall away, very easy to be enticed and to be drawn away from the true and living God. And this is in a sense gonna be a downfall for the people of Israel. And so it's a kind of a neat chapter, because it's the idea that sometimes enticement comes from those even you love. Sometimes even people you care about might draw you away from what you need to be focused on. And that's kind of an important idea too, just in general in our life, right? Is that, we got to fix our eyes, it says, on Jesus and the author and finisher of our faith. If we stick to that Hebrews 12 section of the New Testament, right? Fix your eyes on Jesus, but there's many things that want to entice you away, and they come in various forms. I even think of it in practical ways. Sometimes you want to get good at an instrument, or you want to get better at this, or you want to write a book, or you want to do this, and you really have it on your heart. You want to start a business. But there's many things that draw you away, right? There's many things that move you away from that and kind of entice you in different directions, so that you don't finish the project, or you procrastinate now, or just you get moved into something else instead of staying focused. And that's the idea, is staying focused. So removing those things that hinder and moving towards things that are of God. That's the idea always in these two chapters. And so it kind of falls under the umbrella of not having any other idols before us. And so it's a warning to the people of Israel, for them, that, hey, you're going to be going into this land, and this is what I'm asking you to do, is to remove and draw close. To remove, draw close, and be very attentive that you could be enticed through even people in your own household, or someone who claims to be a religious figure. There's many people that will entice you in different directions. So stick to my words. That's kind of the idea. So interesting, right? Tina says, put a wedge with you and God. Yeah, I always taught my kids take care of whatever it is. Deal with it. Your thoughts go crazy and get worse. God has taught me that. Yeah, that's right. You got to deal with those things, those weights, those sins, those things that can hinder us, right? That put that wedge between us and God. So true, right? And so Laura does quote that Hebrews passage, the weights that so easily beset us. That's right, easily beset us, right? Things that really entice us, like chapter 13 is talking about. Um, but they're easily besetting us, right? They easily get us. And so, we have to be very careful of those things. So it's kind of one of those warning sections, right? And it's an action section. The idea of remove, the idea of, hey, what can I do today? Maybe I need to remove some stuff. Maybe I need to focus on something different, right? Those kind of things. So it's a good chapter, very good devotional chapter. It seems kind of radical in a lot of ways when we read it from this perspective of Israel back thousands of years ago, but certainly those principles are very relevant today in our life and very New Testament, right? Remove the things that hinder us, draw close to Christ. That's the big picture. So you guys have a great day. Okay, have a good Friday, and thanks for joining me on the Morning Devo with Bo. Have a good one. Bye-bye.